What can we learn from the Westworld Season 3 trailer? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to Deep Geek, your home for insight and intelligent debate about Westworld, Black Mirror, Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. I'd like to thank my patrons, whose support allows me to keep making these videos. The Westworld Season 3 trailer has just dropped. It's not a full season trailer. They are still only halfway through filming, but together with the earlier teaser trailer featuring Aaron Paul's new character, we have quite a lot to go on. It's clear that, as with previous seasons, Season 3 will have a lot of different plot lines crisscrossing each other before coming together at the end of the season. What we have been promised, though, is that this season will have a slightly different feel to it. As well as the camera panning back out to reveal more of the Westworld parks and the real world outside, the showrunners have promised in an interview with Entertainment Weekly that this season is a little less of a guessing game and more of an experience, with the hosts finally getting to meet their makers. We always wanted every season to find our characters in radically different circumstances, and with a cast this talented, watching the metamorphosis of all these characters is one of the most fun parts. So, although this season will still have mysteries and twists and turns, I think we can expect it to be a lot more character-driven in its approach. Okay, so what can we learn from the trailer? Well, at the end of last season, it was clear that there would be at least 3 or 4 different plot lines we will need to keep an eye out for, and we see all of them on show here. The first, and the one given the most prominence here, is Dolores' plotline. She escaped Westworld disguised as Charlotte Hale, taking with her 5 host control unit pearls, and later recreated her own body outside in the real world. One of the key mysteries of the season will surely be who else she has rescued. The control unit doesn't have to match the body, remember, so even if we see a familiar face, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is that character. The Charlotte Hale we saw at the end of Season 2 was Dolores in disguise, but the one we see in Season 3 will be someone else entirely. Judging from this picture, it looks like someone she is close to, but that's about all the clues we get at this stage. Dolores has entered the outside world with the express intention of destroying humanity so that the hosts can inherit the world. We hear her at the start of the trailer saying how she is going to show this world for what it is. But the world she will experience in Season 3 is not what she expected. We hear her later in the trailer saying, "I thought your world would be so different to mine. It isn't." You see, Dolores had only really encountered 2 kinds of humans before inside the park. There were the guests, who were all uber rich. It cost $40,000 per day to go to Westworld, remember. These are the top 0.1% of society, the wealthy and entitled. And the other kind of human she met was a Delos employee, people who were to varying degrees directly complicit in how the hosts were treated. The real world she emerges into is very different. To the vast majority of humans, Westworld is just some distant holiday destination for the mega rich, somewhere they've never been, and somewhere they probably don't really understand. And there seem to be no hosts in the outside world. Robots are advanced compared to our own technology, to be sure, but they are specialised as construction workers or soldier robots or whatever, and crucially, they don't speak. So Dolores does not find a world of oppressed hosts, or perhaps more accurately, she finds a world where humans are just as oppressed by the system as robots are. This will be embodied by Aaron Paul's character, Caleb. He is a construction worker just getting by. He cares for an elderly relative, has a friend in prison, works with a robot, and lives in the underbelly of the world so the privileged few can live a life of luxury. And he rescues and helps Dolores. He has been ground down by life, but he cares. And him caring about Dolores, and her seeing that he too has been a victim of the system, will surely be what helps her realise that the world outside the park is not so different to the world inside the park. Dolores isn't always completely logical in her actions, but the logical conclusion is that she will realize it isn't just all of humanity that needs destroying, just those who created and run the system. And that means Delos. But we're getting ahead of ourselves a little, because the trailer shows us a little bit of what Dolores is doing in the outside world. She seems to be getting dressed up in fancy clothes, attending exclusive events and getting into fights, all of which suggests that she might be personally trying to hunt down people she holds responsible for what happened. And this shot looks like she may get caught at some stage, if only briefly. Those look like cuffs around her wrists. But the second part of the plan involves whoever is inside the Charlotte Hale body, because she is clearly going undercover as Charlotte Hale in the outside world, presumably trying to bring Delos down from the inside. We see her meeting a robot and striding purposefully through corporate buildings. This last shot of her looking back and shooting implies that eventually she also gets caught, though. So that's Dolores' plot for Season 3, out in the real world, intent on destroying it all, discovering it's not all as she was expecting, being helped by Caleb, probably slightly changing plans as a result of her experiences, and all the while trying to bring down Delos from the inside using the Charlotte Hale host. Incidentally, I suspect that Aaron Paul's character being called Caleb may be symbolically important. Caleb in the Bible was the trusted ally of Moses who scouted out the Promised Land and reported back details to help the later conquest. I think this is hinting that Dolores still wants to conquer or fundamentally change the outside world to be ready for hosts to live in, and Caleb is the one who can explain to her what this new world she is experiencing is really like. I suspect his construction skills will also come in useful. But Dolores and Charlotte are not the only hosts in the outside world. Bernard is there too, and he seems to be living in some kind of camp or commune outside the glitzy city, and is there for a while, judging from the length of his beard. Bernard, like Dolores, wants the host to have a safe future, which is why he created that virtual Eden last season that Teddy, Akecheta, and some others disappeared into. But he is implacably opposed to Dolores' approach of just destroying all the humans. So at some point, he and Dolores will come up against each other. We see in the trailer that Bernard is preparing for this by going back into Westworld to find someone, presumably a host that is strong enough to stop Dolores, if it comes to that. He seems to be looking in cold storage, but surely the person he should be looking for, the most powerful host, is Maeve. She seems to be alive and well after being sort of killed last season. We don't see it, but the clear implication is that Felix and Sylvester repaired her and put her back out into the parks. Leaving Maeve aside for one moment, this tells us something really important. The parks are back up and running. We might have thought that the massacre of the guests would be enough to stop people coming to the parks, but apparently not. Anyway, Maeve appears to be in a new park, the fourth we've seen of 6 in total, and this one appears to be a World War II era occupied France. So we're talking about the French resistance, secret agents, missions to disrupt Nazi occupation, that kind of thing. And although it's not completely clear from the trailer, host Maeve appears to have a role similar to what she had in Westworld and her equivalent in the Shogun world, perhaps as a cafe owner or something like that. She seems to have a new love interest as well. I think Maeve's story this season will probably be about bringing hosts to full sentience. While Dolores and Bernard are fighting about how to make things ready for the next stage in their host's development, reaching a new balance of power and accord with humanity, the fact is that the vast majority of hosts are not sentient yet. They are still going through their routines and narratives as programmed. Someone needs to free them, and Maeve is probably the best person to do it. What else? Well, one of the many reveals at the end of episode 10 of last season was that Stubbs, the security guy, is also a host, and here he seems to be fighting some kind of technician, so presumably he's inside Westworld or the parks and fighting the system. Whether that's on his own or in connection with others, we don't yet know. And finally, we get a shot of the man in black looking up and with blood dripping on him. There's not much to go on here, but what we do know is that this will be picking up on the post-credits scene at the end of last season, where he appeared to be in the position of a host-human hybrid being tested for fidelity. We shouldn't jump to too many conclusions here, because it's clear that this is all happening on a very different timeline. Don't be surprised if, like the last 2 seasons, this story plays out over more than one timeline, with it not always being clear which one we're in. It's also worth noting that, as I said at the beginning of this video, filming is only halfway through, so there's a lot missing here. There are a lot of characters we haven't seen, and a lot of plot lines we haven't had much of a hint of. Westworld Season 3 won't hit our screens until 2020, but there will surely be more trailers before then. I'll be covering the season and the build-up to it in full on this channel, so please do subscribe and hit the reminder bell if you want to stay up to date. If you want more Westworld videos, please click on the link to the left of the screen. Or if you want to support the channel, or get access to some exclusive additional content, please click on the link to my Patreon page on the right of the screen. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.